This week is one of my favourite topics because this is where everything that you've been building actually pays off. My name's Rachel, I'm the founder of Roots Hair Extensions, and I cannot wait to help you grow your business. So let's dive into the fourth pillar of business, sales and conversion. We're talking about turning interest into bookings, because here's the thing, visibility without conversion is just really a pretty Instagram page that isn't making you any money, and we're not here for that. You could have thousands of views, hundreds of people scrolling through your work thinking, oh my God, I just love it. But if none of them actually book, your business doesn't grow. The rent doesn't pay itself, and well, you know how the rest goes. So when it comes to sales and conversion, there are 4 key areas that we need to look at: the sales process, objection handling, funnels, and the customer journey. This is where we're going to take someone who's interested but perhaps a little anxious and turn them into somebody who's sitting in your chair, fully confident and excited. Picture this. There's a client out there right now. They've got the budget, they're excited, they've been dreaming about hair for weeks. Probably has a whole Pinterest board going on. But they're also a little bit nervous because they want to make sure that they choose the right person. So they do what every potential client does. They scroll on Instagram. They've found a few salons that they like the look of. They all look professional, they all look talented, and if they're being honest, they can't really tell them apart. So they message 3 of the stylists. Stylist number 1 replies within a couple of minutes. Friendly, helpful, answers all the questions, offers a consultation slot. Stylist number 2 replies the next morning. And stylist number 3 has an auto response that says, thanks for your message, we'll get back to you soon. Now, hand on heart, who is getting that booking? We already know the answer. And the point here isn't to make you feel bad. The point is that speed and structure matter for more than most people realise. More than your feed aesthetic, more than your follower count, and more than most things, honestly. Think about it like this. Imagine walking into a lovely restaurant. You're standing at that front desk. No one's acknowledged you. You've waited for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Eventually, somebody shuffles over and says, oh, someone will be right with you. Most people have already decided that they're leaving. And that's exactly what's happening in your DMs. When a potential client is waiting, they don't send a strongly worded follow-up. They don't complain. They simply go and book somewhere else, which is painful because that was your client. And this is exactly where automations and DM funnels become a big game changer. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Automation just means sending an auto reply, something like, thanks for your message, we'll get back to you soon. But that's not a funnel. That's just a digital shrug. It doesn't move the conversation forward, it just delays it. Real automations are conversations and guides that take the client towards the next step, even when you're elbow deep in a set of nano rings with your phone face down on the counter. Here's a simple example of how it works. A client sends you a DM, hi, how much are the extensions? Instead of replying a vague price to start from, your system guides them through a small but effective flow. It asks something like, which method are you interested in? Then it gives them button options to tap. Nano rings, tape hair extensions, weaves. Let's say they choose nano rings. Your system then automatically sends them a proper price guide. Not a vague starts from that leaves them guessing, but something that actually reassures them. Something like, prices for a full head of nano range from, give them the price of your average 16-inch nano price. Now, up to your longest range, the most expensive hair that you use, give them the price for the same amount of hair for the most expensive range of hair in the most expensive length. This gives them the full scope of the average full head, from the cheapest price to the most expensive price. The rest of your message also has This includes the fitting, high quality hair with a 12 to 18 month lifespan when cared for correctly, the full consultation, the full aftercare guidance, and prices are based on the average head of 150 grams. You may need slightly less if you're not looking for a full head, or slightly more if your hair is very thick. So this is intended as a guide rather than an exact quote. So if you see what we did there, we haven't boxed you into a fixed price, but you've given the client enough information to feel safe. They're not sitting there wondering, are they going to judge what I can afford? Or is this price going to just suddenly double once I'm actually there? You've been transparent. You've explained the variables from the cheapest to the most expensive on the average full head, and that builds trust before they've even spoken to you. The same logic applies to appointment inquiries. If somebody asks about availability, your funnel can take them straight to your booking platform. So instead of waiting hours for someone to manually reply, they're moving towards that booking while you get on with your day. I once asked a group of stylists how many DMs they were getting in a week for hair extensions. Some said 5, some said 10 or more. Then I asked them how many of those were actually converting into bookings. And the answer was usually 1, maybe 2. The interest was absolutely there, but the system wasn't, and that is the gap. This whole pillar is designed to close that gap. Now, a lot of people hear the word funnel and think it's some complicated tech thing, but it really isn't. A funnel is simply the path someone takes before they buy. For a hair extension specialist, a basic funnel looks exactly like this. Someone sees your social media content. They then send a DM. They then get information. They then book a consultation, and then they come in for the fitting. That is your funnel, start to finish. The problem is that many stylists accidentally skip steps. They go from how much are your extensions straight to trying to close a £400 to £800 service. And that's a big leap for someone who has never been to you before. Funnels bridge that gap beautifully. They build trust, manage expectations, and that dramatically increases the chance of clients not only booking, but coming back and sending their friends. But here's the reality. Clients have questions at all hours. 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, Sunday afternoon when you're not working, or when you're halfway through a 3-hour fitting. That's why your system needs to work even when you're not. Not instead of you, but for you. So let's walk through the customer journey step by step, because every single stage either builds trust or loses it. First, let's look at where someone finds you. Is it Instagram, Google, or a recommendation from a friend? They then go to your page, they look at your results, they read the comments, they check whether you seem credible or whether your last post was from 8 months ago. Then they'll drop you a DM. Every step in that journey matters. If the page looks inactive or low quality, they hesitate. If there's no clear information, no education, no social proof, they hesitate. If their message isn't answered quickly, they move on. The entire journey needs to feel smooth, reassuring and easy, because the moment something feels confusing, people don't push through. They simply go somewhere else. Now let's talk about objection handling, because this one is so important and so often misunderstood. Objections are not rejection. 9 times out of 10, an objection is simply uncertainty. Hair extension specialists hear these next few comments constantly. It's quite expensive, or I need to think about it, or I'll get back to you soon. And what do many stylists do? They drop the conversation. They assume the client isn't interested and they move on. But those clients were interested. They just needed a little bit more reassurance. When someone says, "That's more than I expected," instead of apologising for your prices or writing them off thinking they can't afford it, try responding with something like this. "I completely understand, Most clients feel that way before they've been to us for a fitting. The reason the hair extensions vary in price is because the price reflects the quality of the hair, the lifespan you can expect, and the fitting method being used. When fitted properly and cared for correctly, higher quality hair lasts significantly longer and gives a much better overall result. That response is calm, confident, and informative. It doesn't sound defensive, and it gives the client something to feel good about. Because very often, what sounds like a price objection is simply somebody asking you to help them feel confident in that decision. And this is one of my favourite ways to explain this. Just think about Apple. Nobody ever walks into an Apple store thinking, wow, these are crazy affordable items. We all know it's going to cost us, and yet most of us still walk out with a purchase. In fact, we probably went there with intent to purchase. Why? Because the experience builds trust. There are staff everywhere ready to help. They demonstrate the product, they answer every question. And before you even get to the store, Apple has already done so much of that work through their marketing, through their content, through the way that they communicate. And here's the key thing. Apple never sells features. They don't say, look at this phone, it's got buttons and a volume control. No, they sell outcomes. They show you what the product does for your life, how it helps you run your business, how it takes better photos, and how it simplifies your day. You can do exactly the same thing through your content, through your consultations, and through the way you communicate in your DMs. By the time a client is sat down in your chair for their fitting, they should feel excited, not nervous, not unsure, just excited. So here's the part that I want you to think about. Ask yourself honestly, at what point do people usually stop responding? Because that drop-off point right there is your answer. Did they go quiet after the first DM? Or after you sent the prices? Or after a consultation? Because each one of those tells you something specific. Maybe the consultation process feels confusing. Maybe the pricing message lacks context. Or maybe the replies and the DMs were too slow or didn't fully answer what the client needed. Fixing just one stage of this process can increase bookings dramatically. And when I say dramatically, I mean double and beyond. A lot of stylists assume that the answer is simply more visibility, more views, more followers, going viral. But the truth is many people already have more than enough interest. What's missing is a clear, smooth path that turns that interest into bookings. Now you can download and print the sales and conversions blueprint below. Use it to map out your current process and identify exactly where potential clients usually stop responding. Because once you know where that gap is, you'll know exactly what part of your system needs improving. Thank you for joining me this week. If you found this masterclass helpful, please let us know. Tell us what you found interesting, and most importantly, tell us the results that you get from this framework. And if this particular session wasn't that useful to you, let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in a future masterclass.